All right. Hello. Welcome again. We're going to do something that's really helpful for my students. We're creating in this animation and motion graphics course, we're creating video game animations where we're replicating old games that didn't have very complex things like they do today, but it gives us an opportunity to sort of jump into After Effects and really sort of get into this idea of simple frame looping for sprite animation in After Effects. So a quick rundown, we're going to start here in Illustrator. I've got some graphics prepared where we're going to just put these together and package them and then bring them over to After Effects, where we'll then take the different stages of Pac-Man that you see here, right, the different mouth openings, and we're going to create a loopable composition that then we'll be able to put on the stage, move around, and Pac-Man will chomp, chomp, chomp forever, and that's going to be great. And it's going to sort of take care of something that we don't need to do over and over with keyframes, which is really helpful. So we're going to take advantage of that using the time remapping feature and then also adding a simple loop out expression to get this done. We'll talk about some pitfalls and things like that that go on. And right now we're going to deal with graphics preparation to get this ready to come over into After Effects. Okay, so first things first is we're in Illustrator, and we need to break our project here into layers, because when we work in Illustrator, it's, you know, all the objects can exist in one space, and that's really cool and helpful. But if we work in any other Adobe product, layers are critical. So we need to do that in order to work successfully in After Effects. So what we're going to do is I've got these background graphics. I'm going to just quickly group these guys together because they're going to be one big piece. So I just held the Shift key and clicked on each one, and then I hit Command G. Okay, and those guys are ready to go. They're basically just a piece of the board. I've also created a artboard that is set for HD. So if I click on my artboard here, you'll see that I have it set to HDV 1080 in the preset. And the reason I do that is because my target size in After Effects is going to be HD. Okay, so I want to sort of get the WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get type of thing going from one side to the other, right, and improve my workflow. So we're going to go here to our layers. And what we want to do is, I'm glad I grouped this because now it's going to go into its own layer, and then all the Pac-Man slices are going to go into their own layers. So in the layers palette, let me pull this guy so you can see it. We're going to click on this little tiny button here that's in the top right-hand corner, and that is your layer options. And we'll click on that and pull it down. And then we're going to see this feature that says release to layers. And there's two of them. It says sequence and build. We want sequence because it's going to put every single piece in its own separate layer. And then build would be like a piece by piece. It would sort of add a different graphic as if you were sort of forming up a mosaic or something like that. So we're going to use sequence here, but there is a difference in case you click on one and you're like, what's going on? So we'll click that and you'll see, bam, everything gets broken up into separate pieces. And yep, of course, it takes into account everything that's in the composition. So because I made my little sort of dime store title card there, I have to just delete those graphics real fast. So I'm going to just eliminate them from mine. You won't have these, of course. You'll have just your prepared graphics. So what I did was I imagined every state that the graphic of Pac-Man would be in, and I essentially created that. So that way I have that media to work with inside of the software. Okay, so everything's broken into different layers, but if you'll notice, it is a sub-layer of a main layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold, click on the first one, and then put our finger on the Shift key, and then click the last layer to get them all. And then we're going to, on any one of these, just start to click and drag and bring it up to just about here, just above layer one, so that it now breaks out and is a part of the main layer group. That's really important that we do that. So the reason is that sublayers aren't brought in as individual objects into After Effects. So we need it to be in that main layer level, okay? And you'll notice it's not indented. That's sort of the main difference. So a couple extra extraneous things that we don't need is like the background, right? We had a second layer that was layer one originally, and it was just empty, so I got rid of it. And then also the black I got rid of because we're going to use After Effects' composition settings to make the background black. We don't need it. All of this will be transparent. Super cool. All right, now the last thing we got to do is I like to be a neat and organized and tidy person, at least digitally, so I want to give you that habit as best as I can. So all these are layered with just numbers. So I'm going to click on them, double click and on the name, and you can change it. And we want to do this so that we can see what it is inside of After Effects. Okay, so this is going to be the board, okay, that first one. And then we'll call this, and this will really help me. I'm going to call this, I'm going to keep numbers here, but I'm going to call it Pack 1, okay? And then let's see, the second layer here, that is not in fact the second one. So what we'll do is that one here, I just reorganized it, and we'll call this Pack 2, because that's the second stage in the Pac-Man animation of chomping. And then we have Pack 3, and then the largest part of the mouth, Pack 4. Okay, so I've built now each of those stages. They're broken into layers. The board is separated too. We can save this and then now import it into After Effects. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to hit Command S. All right. Now, one thing that I need to do that I've already prepared, and you guys, I'll show it to you here, is that we have on my desktop. Let me navigate to it real quick. All right. So we have a project folder, and I've called it Simple Sprite Loop. And the reason I've done this is that I need to have all my media, meaning my Illustrator file, next to my After Effects project, which doesn't exist yet, but is going to be saved in this location. So it's important that the first thing you do is create a project folder, right? And if you need to move computer to computer, like sometimes people do, especially students, take that whole folder with you, right? And it will remain, the project will remain intact. Okay, so it's just organization. All right, so I've already saved Pac-Man Looper there. It's ready to import into After Effects, so I can head over here to After Effects. This was my previous example, which I'm just going to make a brand new we're going to go File, New, and I'm going to make a new project. Okay, and save my previous one. So here's a blank project in After Effects. And what I'm going to do is import my Illustrator file. And the great thing about doing the file import is not only will it sort of maintain my composition and my graphics and bring them in as vectors, but it will also create a brand new composition for me. So forgive me, I am assuming here that you have some After Effects knowledge. So I'm going to cover just the basics of importing, but things like composition and projects and things I won't explain in detail here. Okay, so what we're going to do is with a brand new project, we're going to go File, Import, File, and then we're going to navigate towards our desktop, right, where I have my project folder for Simple Sprite Loop. And then there is the pacmanlooper.ai, the Illustrator file. I'll click on it. And then once I do, I get this option at the bottom that says Import As right here. And right now it says Import As Footage. And what I want to do is make sure that I roll down here to where it says composition and then retain layer sizes. The reason I'm doing this, footage flattens my Illustrator file to one layer, which I don't need. It sort of defeats the purpose. And composition versus the one with retained layer sizes makes every layer the same size as the artboard. So I don't need my transform handles to be on the outer edge of the screen. It just doesn't make sense in this case. So we're going to click retain layer sizes. That's sort of always my import setting. It's just sort of how I work and how I like to go. So we're going to say open right after we made that change. All right, and then in pops now the composition, which is essentially the AI file, and then all of its layers inside of a folder. So there's all the vector art ready to rock. All right, so to get started, I'm going to double click on the Pac-Man Looper composition, and then you'll see it'll populate my artboard here with that, and I have all my pieces ready to go. And yeah, I'm going to break this apart into a few things, and then we're going to be working with two compositions. So that way we can take advantage of having one composition separate timeline to handle the looping, which will be the the chomping of Pac-Man. May do the sound again, but I won't repeat it right now. And yeah, then we want to do that so that we can then take Pac-Man, put him onto another board, and then have him move. So we want to be able to take advantage of both of those types of things. And it's kind of impossible to do with just a flat single composition. So what we'll do is we're going to just keep it simple, and I'm going to click on the board, and I'm going to cut the board. I'm going to Command or Control X, cut the board. So that way it's now outside of the composition. And then I'm going to go to where it says composition at the top. And then I'm going to say new composition. Okay, it is set to HDTV 1080, 2997. That's what I want. I've got a duration of 15 seconds. My frame rate standard digital 2997, and then my background color is black, which you can click here and change if you'd like. But I want black. All right, cool. And then at the top where it says composition name, we're going to call this main comp. So we know that this is going to be our main timeline, and that then Pac-Man will be a sub composition of what we're working with. Cool. Say okay. All right. I need to now, after I copied or rather cut the board, I'm going to paste it into this main composition here. And I'll back out so you can see sort of what it is. I have some of it going off the screen. I'll move it back here a little bit just so you can see. Oh, actually, I don't have graphics, so it has to be in that location. Cool. And that's fine, right? For what we're doing, it's really okay. If you wanted to make the whole board, you can make bigger graphics that can move around the screen and everything. But in this case, yeah, we're just going to keep this like this for now. All right, this is a static element, so it's not going to move. In fact, in the timeline, we can click on this little padlock in the same row and then click lock, and it will just stay there. It won't move, right? I might nudge it, and it might look strange with the edges, so we won't touch it anymore. All right, so back to the Pac-Man looper composition. You'll notice now I have tabs here that I can toggle back and forth. That's handy. So in here, what I need to do now is we need to get all of the Pac faces lined up, okay, and stacked. Now, I could have done that ahead of time in Illustrator, but I wanted to show you that you can handle it here in After Effects, and it's all good, right? If you want to have your sprite sheet sort of laid out, right? A sprite sheet is a term used to describe the different phases of a character. Like if you saw the sprite sheet of Super Mario, you would see him like a drawing for every single step in his walk and run and duck and fireball and little mini Mario cycle. And that's how they work the magic in games, right? Is like you are technically moving a graphic around, but he also has a sub animation routine going on at the same time. So that's what we're going to do. Cool. So we're going to take all of our Pac people, right, and select them all right there. Okay. And then we're going to go here to, let's see, what was it? I can't find it here. So I'm going to go. Is it arrange? Nah. All right, sorry. We're going to go to window, and then here it is, the align palette. My bad. So go window, align, and then here is the align palette. All right, I can't bring it in here without breaking After Effects. And what we'll do is it's based on a selection. So we're going to click the horizontal center align and then the vertical align. Okay, and that's going to get it like pretty close. It's just because of the nature of the sort of outside of these things. We may have to just sort of play a little bit of a toggle game here, okay, to get these guys just right. Let's see, maybe we can work center points and get these a little bit better. But essentially, we're stacking these graphics one on top of another. It seems that because, I guess for whatever reason, they're not exactly the same size. They really should be because they're all the same type of thing, but that's all good. It'll work out in the end. All right, here's what we're going to do to make this work. This is a simple fix. All right, we're going to select them all. All right, we've done the align. Let's do this one, vertical center align, and then we're going to do left align, horizontal left align, which will at least put all these guys on the same sort of end point there. But all right, we may have to do some tweaking. I'm not liking that this is sort of setting up this way, but it's all good. We're going to make this work nicely. Okay, so now we need to treat this like we're going to be video editing, okay? And we're going to create sort of little steps in the media. So to make this sort of really simple, I want to just show you here that you can sort of drag these clips back and forth, left and right, okay? You can also grab the end of them and you can drag them back like this, okay? Just like you can in any video editing software, okay? So you have to click on the very end of it, you get the two-headed arrow, and it's all good. All right, so Pac-Man chomps really fast. So what we want to do is we're going to click in the zoom in on time. And right now we're on the seconds time scale, but we want to get down to frames because Pac-Man chomps like really quick. So yeah, we want to get this now to be sort of really short. But what we're going to do first is we get back to having my time all the way the full length. I'm going to click on Pac 1 through 4, a big group selection. I held shift and clicked on the first one and then the last one. And then I'm going to scroll all of them back to be just very short, okay? Like less than a second. The reason is we're going to make these even shorter and make them about a frame a piece. Okay. And now I'm on the bottom, you'll see this little mountain range. And as I zoom, you'll notice it goes from being a number and then the letter S to now being a number and the letter F, which is the smallest unit of time in a video space, which is frames. So I'm going to shrink this down, and you can see, well, we're still kind of big there, but now I can get these guys to be almost 1 frame long. I can drag it all the way down, and there you'll see it's 1 frame a piece. Okay, so let's try it at 1 frame a piece. If we need to go to 1.5 frames or 2, we can. But what we're going to do now is, because I've labeled these by number, I can take each of them. I'll grab the bottom 3, and then I'll drag this out, and then it will snap over 1 frame. And then I'll drag the bottom 2, and then bam, pop that out. And then the last one, okay, and then we get this sort of step-by-step animation, okay. And then yeah, clearly that's problematic, right? Pac-Man's doing a little bit of the disco dance, so yeah, we can't really have that. All right, so let's try and center align them again, and let's see if that what that does. Ooh, a little fast, but no worries, because this is going to really work out nicely. Yeah, I guess these guys are different sizes slightly. I use the pie graph tool to make Pac-Man, so that could contribute to what that is. So they might not be exactly the same, but all good, totally cool. So let's see, we might want to just tweak these. All right, so the first one, he's like way far back. All right, let's see if we can get that better. Okay, pretty good. This is one of the sort of issues with Sprite animation, is that you got to get all these guys perfect, and that's not always going to work. Much better. All right, he's not perfect. I could spend time here tweaking, but I bet my real solution lives in Illustrator. I should have sort of paid more attention with the circle there, but it's all good for what this is. We can, of course, tweak. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to make this composition the same length that the looping is. So the looping is 4 frames. It's not a lot, okay? So what we'll do is we can go up to where it says composition, and then composition settings. And then here under the duration, it's set to 15. So I'm going to make it all zeros. And then I'm going to come back here, and on the very last number, I'm going to say 4. And that's going to make this 4 frames long. I'll say okay. And now you'll see our whole timeline shifted, and it is only as long as there are frames, okay? So we can now sort of see this in quick succession, okay? While Pac-Man's really hoofing it there, okay? We could always change this, of course, if we want to mess with the duration to make it a little bit slower. But for now, this is totally cool. All right. All right. So before we do anything else, we got to save. All right. And then we got to also just take the moment to target. So we'll do project save as, and then save as. And then we will target our folder where we have our simple sprite, where we have our Pac-Man Looper AI file, because that's where After Effects thinks this project is right now, and we'll call this simple Looper Sprite, and we'll say save. It's an After Effects project. Cool. All right, so now everything is in that folder, right? If I pull up in my Finder, you can see here's my After Effects project, and it thinks, and it's right, that the Pac-Man AI file is right next to it, and that's totally cool, and it's exactly what we need. If you were to move this, it would mess up your project royally, so try to keep everything in one folder, and life will be dandy. All right, so here we go. So again, not perfect, but still good, right? Demonstrating the loop capability. We're going to go back to now where it says the main comp, and then we're going to go to our project window where Pac-Man Looper is, and then we're going to drag Pac-Man Looper into the stage. Okay, and you can see there it is, right? It's as big as it composition is, right? Our composition doesn't necessarily need to be that size. So we can affect that if we want to, but it's all good for this purpose, right? We can sort of still move it. So the whole point of this is that we want to make it so that Pac-Man chomps and moves at the same time, right? So to move a graphic, but then also have it change its sort of graphical state, that's tricky in After Effects to do with just one timeline in this way. So that's why using the composition and then using the looping effect handles that sort of sub or secondary animation and allows us to focus on the primary animation, which is position. It's just moving Pac-Man around the stage, okay? I didn't add pellets here, okay? That's obviously critical for Pac-Man, but we just want to demonstrate the looping capability. Okay, so now we're gonna get this thing going. So I've pulled Pac-Man looper down, and you'll notice it has its own timeline. There are no keyframes here describing the looping, because that's all that's all nested inside of our composition. So we're going to handle just the sort of motion part of this. So what we'll do now is we're going to first enable the looping feature. So I'm clicking on Pac-Man looper, right, the name, and then I'm going to control click, right, to get the contextual menu. And then I'm going to go up to where it says time, and then enable time remapping, this feature right here. Okay, and what that does, let me zoom in, you'll see for the duration of our movie, it sets 2 keyframes, open and close, in order to sort of set that looping feature in and out. Okay, so you'll see, right, there it goes. Okay, and then we'll have one issue here. You can see the frame goes dark at the end. All right, so what we're going to do is, before we proceed, I needed to zoom in a little so I could grab the end of this right here, and then I'm going to drag the media out for as long as the composition is, which is 15 seconds. Okay, and you'll see it will and then it disappears, right? Because that's all the media that we have at the current moment, right? So it's only going to play what it has inside of that pre-comp. So now with time remapping, we'll be able to get it to loop over and over again, but that requires an expression. Okay, and an expression is just simply, if you've never heard of them, is code, JavaScript, that you can write inside of After Effects, and it's quite handy to do little type of odd things that, like, you need in your animation for it to look legit. And in this case, Pac-Man needs to chomp, so we're going to make that happen. All right, so I'm going to click on the time remapping attribute or characteristic here, and then you go up to where it says animation, and then down to where it says add expression. Okay, and then now you can see it has the default expression of time remap, and there's this little window where we can write a script and it gets compiled later with our After Effects project. So we're going to say delete, and then we're going to write loop, all one word, capital O-U-T, loop out, just like that, open parentheses, open quotation, the word cycle, a comma, and then a 0, okay, and then a close quote, close parenthesis. So what this is going to do is this is going to sort of create a continuous loop, and it's going to start at frame 0, all right, and it's going to go over and over and over and over again, and life is wonderful, okay, and yeah, it's going to just work. So let's check it out, okay. Oh, let's see. What did I have a problem with here? Oh, sorry, my bad. I put the parenthesis or the quotation mark in the wrong spot. It's got to be after the word cycle. Sorry. Yep, I should have known that. Whenever you put a word or a string inside of code, yeah, it has to happen. Okay, cool. Thank goodness After Effects picked that up. And we don't need any quotes around the 0 because it's just a number. So it's all good. The computer gets it. All right. Now that's in. Check it out. There it goes. Monk, 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 monk. Fantastic. I told you I'd do the thing over again. So there's Pac-Man for the duration of the 15 seconds, or the duration of the clip, is just sitting there chomping. And that's exactly what we want to have happen. Okay, you'll notice I'm not getting a full real-time playback, but close enough. All right, he's going to actually be a little bit quicker. All right, so I hit spacebar to start that, and then spacebar to stop it. But we've got the expression in. We've added time remapping. We have Pac-Man on the stage. And now what we can do, this is now where we can sort of like double or multiplex the animation. I'll close time remapping, and I've got transform open. If it's not open, you can drop it down. And then I'll click on, well, here's what we'll do. We'll make this kind of fun. We'll have Pac-Man be off the stage to start. And then I'll click the stopwatch to enable keyframes. Okay. And then I'm now going to, at 2.5 seconds, right about here, have Pac-Man scroll across the screen. Okay. And then, yeah, let's have him go off stage. It'll just be real simple, right? Just for the sake of what we're doing. I was gonna maybe have him turn, but this isn't critical to learning how to loop, so it's all good. All right, so now, there you can see, I just scrubbed it. There he goes. So we have this primary animation going on here where we're moving the main object of Pac-Man Looper, the composition. And then the secondary action of, let's zoom in here, of Pac-Man chomping, and then at the end going off stage. Okay, so quick recap here. We prepared graphics in Illustrator, right? So here is our graphics. I did have some issues, of course, with alignment. I could fix and then bring back in. It would really make my life easier, but it's okay for now. I can fix it later. I broke it into layers. Okay, here's all the different stages, frame by frame, plus the board. I then jumped to After Effects and imported this. It came in as its own composition, right? Pac-Man Looper, here are all my layers, good to go. I then opened up Pac-Man Looper. I cut the media down by trimming the clips and dragging their ends so that they were positioned in a nice staircase, one frame at a time. Cool. To give us this loop feature. I trimmed the composition by going up to composition settings, and then trimming the duration to be just as long as the project is, or as the loop is and is needed. And then I went back to the main comp, and then I was able to drag in the Pac-Man looper. You can see I can even bring in another one if I want to, right? And like, yeah, well, I'll have to add all the time remapping stuff to it. But yeah, I could replicate that and have two Pac-Men, right? Or a Miss Pac-Man come into the mix to create this, and I would have similar features going on. They would all have that embedded looping chomp animation, which would make this really great. And then once this was on the main timeline, I added time remapping. So I went to my composition, control-clicked in the timeline, went to time, clicked enable time remapping so that I would have that feature. And then once time remapping was active, I dragged my media to be the, because it's only the length of 4 frames. I had to zoom in, and I dragged it all the way over to the right so it was there and would loop for that duration of time. And then while I had time remapping selected, I went up to where it says animation, and then here it says remove expression, but I added an expression, right? And you can see this code here, and I used just a simple After Effects expression, which is loop out, and then I used cycle and 0, so that way it would start from frame 1. Okay, so this is an important thing, is that sometimes, and some of you may have this issue, I can't seem to replicate it sometimes, but I can do it other times. It's really weird. Maybe it's a bug, but sometimes when you write this type of expression, you get a blank keyframe showing up sort of at the very end. Here I'm not, okay? All right, now here's the fix, and I know this sounds like really goofy and maybe like original Nintendo type of hack, but I've heard some of my students say that if you save, quit After Effects, and then restart, it works. I don't know, maybe it has something to do with the expressions and the compiler. That was the sort of maybe I thought of, and it does work. But then I've seen that also not happen. So here is the fix if it doesn't happen. So what you do is you zoom in real tight, and you get to where it says about 4 frames, okay? And what I've seen and what I've done to make this happen is you add, on the frame before, you add another keyframe, okay? And then you delete the last keyframe. Only, okay, this is an only, if you have a black or empty keyframe that's showing up in your loop, right? Again, I can't fully explain why this occurs. If you know, please put it in the comments. I would love to know. This is sort of a mystery of the ages. But yeah, you would then just delete this, and then essentially your loop would be, yeah, right, 1 frame less, but yeah, it would not have that black frame. I don't have that issue in my animation, so I'm going to restore it to be the full 4 frames. Okay, save. Okay, and then now I'm going to render this guy, and I will have a 15-second or a few second animation of Pac-Man moving across the screen. So I'm going to go to where it says composition, add to render queue. Okay, we're doing the main comp, obviously, so that's where I was. So I'll go to best settings. This is cool. It's going to do a HD QuickTime movie. All right. I can even come in here and trim the composition and not be so long. So if I say custom right here, I can make this be not 15 seconds, but 3 seconds. Okay, because I think I only have 2.5 seconds of animation. So I'll say okay. It'll automatically trim my composition, no extra stuff. Then I go to this output module setting. I click lossless. And this is where you can change your different codecs for video. I'm just going to go with QuickTime, and then I have it on animation codec. This is totally fine. It's such a short animation. You can upload this to YouTube or to Instagram or anything, and it's totally cool. So we'll say OK here. Those are the good settings. And then where it says output 2, I'll click on that. And then now I will choose my new simple sprite looper, and I'm going to save the comp MOV in this location. And I'm going to say save. Now I've made all my settings correct, and then I will hit render. Okay, and then you'll hear the handy dandy once it's done. Awesome. Okay, that's letting you know that After Effects has finished rendering, and now that this movie is available in our folder. Right, here it is. You can see main comp. It's real small. It's 11 megs, and its animation compressor is like full resolution, so it's gonna be great. So we'll double click that because it has to convert, and then now, okay, no pellets, but a simple movement with nested looping animation has been achieved. All right, and I am as happy as can be. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. Again, like, this doesn't solve every issue. There are some mysteries when it comes to working with sprite animations to sort of like control a sprite like you would in a video game. But at least this handles sort of some of that underlying annoying stuff that you would have to do frame by frame by hand, and would be really tricky when dealing with this in just one flat composition. So this has been Mike Worth, and I am so happy that you guys have been here with me. Good luck. Hit me with some comments and questions, and yep, keep on rocking. Bye-bye.